I think I need to remove the transition. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Hello everyone. Thanks for joining today. We are Microsoft Singapore user group. So we are Azure Singapore. In that we are Azure Singapore. So basically, we organize all Azure related groups. In Microsoft technical community, there are several communities: SQL community, PaaS community, and Miss ML community. So if you are interested, you can join our Facebook page, like MS Tech Communities SG. So there you can find out all the groups there. And even though there is also a meetup group, so MSUG and UG. So in that, under that, you can see all our events related to Azure or AI or SQL. You can find out there. And we also have our MVP YouTube channel. So you can explore our all the previous videos and the recordings are available there. For Azure Singapore, we are a few organizers. So if you would like to present, or you want to contact with us with any regarding presentation or maybe organizing the group, so you can contact any one of us. And about me, I am Asif. Yeah, and apart from that, we have done some past in past month December and January. We have done some really good sessions on DevOps. So you can find on our YouTube channel, that is on Azure Singapore. You can see the link here. You can just go and explore there. There are a lot of DevOps related sessions available there. And Lohith have, this is the 4-part series we are doing. That's completely it's for on the API building. So first part of the API building, Lohith have already explained last month on 21st January. So the recording of the session is available on our YouTube channel. Okay, and apart from that, next is in today's session. Today's session is completely on DevOps. So DevOps for the API, which is Ms. Lohit is going to explain how API works for the DevOps and how we can do the DevOps for the APIs. In last session, he explained about building the API, designing the API. So in this is the second part of the series. So in today's session, he will explain more on the DevOps, how we can do the CI/CD and all. And about Lohith, Lohith is a tech lead for the Zamrunners. He have a lot of experience on .NET related technologies. He was ex MVP and also a tech evangelist on for the Telric. Next session for this part 3 is going to be implementing for the APIs, which is going to happen on 18th February. So yeah, so if you can also join on 18th February for the next session. And if you like to also see some related sessions for this, so there are some previous related sessions happen for like design the API part 1 and also on the microservices. So you can see on our YouTube channel. All the sessions are available there. And there are also on Saturday, means 20th February, there is also one boot camp happening. That's called Global Power Platform Boot Camp. So if you are interested on the Power Platform, so maybe it's very interesting for you. So because it's a whole day event, and back to back there are a couple of sessions going to be happen there, so you can join there. And there is also one, if you are interested in data related things, so there is also Singapore Data Platform User Group, which is also under Microsoft Technical Community. So there is a data sessions season 2, which is episode 2 is happening for the Azure Synapse Analytics. So if you are a guy of Azure Synapse Analytics and Power BI related stuff, so you can join this session. There is a Nagraj Azure Synapse Analytics explained by Nagraj. He is also a Microsoft person. And there's also another session by the Power BI. So that's by Prince here. And this is our YouTube channel on MVP United Most Profitable MVP. So you can just join to see all the sessions, previous sessions happening there. So all recordings are available there. And we have also done some chatbot sessions. So those sessions are all also available in on our YouTube channel. And last but not the least, before taking over the Lohith, so there's a few reminders. If you have any questions, please you can put on the chat box, or you can also use the raise hand feature, and please keep yourself on mute. And this session is being recorded, so and if you like the session, please helps to spread the words on the social media. Yeah, over to you, Lohit.
Okay. I hope I'm audible. I hope my voice is
Yes.
clear to everybody.
Yeah, you are.
Cool. So good after. I don't know. Probably we are here in Singapore. It's a evening time. Probably somebody is joining from APAC. It's a good evening for you guys. If you're coming from Europe, it's a good afternoon. Maybe it's a lunchtime to you. So welcome. Let me share my screen. I need to go to my OBS studio. Let me know if you're able to see my screen now.
Yeah, can.
You can?
No, not the screen. I think it's only the background
Oh,
showing.
hang on. I think I know what I need to do. Okay. I need to be in the camera and then I need to tell Teams to share my screen. Now you guys should see my screen.
Yeah, can.
Cool. Okay. So you can see me and then you can see my screen. So I sorted my camera problem from the last week. So I'm using OBS Studio with a virtual camera so I can come in here and then Teams can take my the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so let's get started. Welcome to everybody. So this is a 4-part series, as Asif said. We finished already the first part. Our part 1 was designing the API. Basically, we started out with a problem statement and then we worked towards that. So let me advance my slide. Well, something about me, Asif has already said, if you are going through the Microsoft Singapore UG, there's already a video recording from the part 1. So this is something that was there already there. So my name is Lohith. That's how I look. And then also you can see me. Some of the books that I've written, I kind of say myself as a coder, 2 decades on Microsoft.NET technology. I currently work as a technology lead for a company here in Singapore called Xamariners Pte Limited. So I take care of technology in the company. I'm also an ex-Microsoft MVP. I'm very jealous of Asif, Nilesh, everybody, because the MVP world is fantastic. You get to do a lot of things. But I said enough of that. In 2018, I need to focus on my family. So, but yeah, once an MVP, I'm always an MVP. So that flair will always be there. As Asif said, I also been an ex-evangelist for Telerik in India. I handled the whole of Telerik portfolio in India from 2012 till 17 or so. That's about me. I've written some 3 books and then a couple of I've created a couple of courses for Pact Publishing. I speak, as you can see. So this, as we said, has been a 4-part series. We finished part 1. If you attended my part 1 and you are here on part 2, well, kudos to you. I don't have any goodies, but otherwise I would have given something. So this is going to be an interesting journey that I kind of built out. Part 1 was designing the API. We took a problem statement. We designed an API for that. This one, our part 2, is DevOps for the API. So typically, if you are a developer, if you are an architect, if you are a lead or whatever, if you're writing code, the moment somebody tells you like, hey, can we build this API? The first instinct as a developer is to, oh yeah, okay, I can, you start visualizing in your head. Oh yeah, I go to Visual Studio, I say file new, I say Azure Functions project, boom, the code is there. I'll start writing the code. In part 1, we actually automatically generated the the whole source code for, or basically the bare bone, or as we call it, we scaffolded an Azure Functions project using Autorest. If you have not seen the part 1, I highly suggest go take a look at after this the part 1. So I created a open API spec, took the open API spec and then ran it through a command line tool called Autorest, and I told Autorest that I want you to generate the function, because this whole series is based on serverless end-to-end application. So we are building a serverless API, and then we'll build a consumer for this serverless API. Now, the moment we scaffolded Azure functions, probably every team in the world is like, okay, let's start building or let's start coding the implementation of the API, right? So I stand different. I take different route. I tell my team that, look, that's it. You did a file new project or you did auto rest or whatever. Yeah, that's it. So stop now. Let DevOps come in and then let it create the DevOps, whatever is required from a DevOps perspective. So for me, when I say DevOps, I'm mostly talking from the perspective of, is the infrastructure ready? Can the infrastructure be built? Can I have the CI? Can I have the CD? Yeah, that's what I want. I'm not looking for implementation of the API right from day one. No, you scaffolded it, or if you're not using scaffolding, even today, if you're not doing open API spec, or if you're not doing auto rest, but you're directly going to Visual Studio and then saying like file new Azure Functions project, stop after you do file new Azure Functions project. That's it. Let Visual Studio scaffold the project. Don't do any implementation, because Microsoft has done great with respect to the scaffolding of the projects. There's already a bare bone code available. If you build it, it is going to build. If you deploy it, it's going to deploy. So stop there and then start looking at, okay, how do we do infra for this? How do we do a continuous integration for this? How do we do continuous deployment for this? Why? The moment you have your CI CD infrastructure figured out, that's it. Your development team can start cranking out your features. Why? The moment I have a feature, I don't need to wait. My CI/CD is ready. I just have to deploy and see like, hey, look, let's test it on dev environment, or let's test it on test environment, whatever, depending on how many environment you have. So that is what I practice in my teams. I say we call it as a foundation sprint, or we call it sprint 0, whatever you call it. It can be any name. But I think my friend Roderick is here. So I was working with a team in Netherlands, and then we used to call this particular sprint as foundation sprint. So what did we do? File new project, CI, CD, pipelines are ready, boom, done. From next sprint onwards, I need to do a feature. Okay, not a problem. Just check in and then wait for 5 minutes. It's there on your environment. That's where you want to go with DevOps. That's where the power of DevOps comes in very, very handy, because you don't need to wait for your code. For me, from 10, 15, 20 years, if you tell me that it is working on your mission, I don't believe you. As long as you put it onto an environment and it runs on the environment, well, that's when I believe like, yes, it works, right? Even today, I tell my devs like, guys, you may have done anything, but did the build pass? Did did you deploy? Did it go and sit in the development environment? Were you able to check the development environment? Yes, then you're done. Okay, so that's pretty much how I do things. And then, of course, part 3 will be implementing the API and then implementing the consumer in all those things. So now we're going to focus on how to do DevOps for the API. Well, the prerequisite still remains the same. You're familiar with .NET ecosystem. You're familiar with Azure. You're familiar with Azure, serverless as an architectural pattern. I'm not going to go into that one. And then, of course, functions and then C#. Now, the problem statement, I'm just going to put the problem statement from the part 1 that we had. You are part of API development team at Contasso, and you're tasked with development of an API to manage employee to-dos. So part 1, what we did was we created the API. So we designed the API and we generated a open API spec, or it's called as open API spec.yaml or open API.yaml. So we have created that, and we have generated we have scaffolded the code. This one, or this particular series, we're going to talk about something that you keep hearing, IAC, or infrastructure as a code. Well, what is this? Have we been doing this before? Yes and no. If you are an IT personnel, probably you had done some amount of infrastructure as a code, right? Those of you who have heard about Ansible or Chef or Puppet, well, it is kind of infrastructure as a code, but that was used to do most of the enterprise level applications, meaning, well, I want to use Puppet, or I want to use Chef, or I want to use Ansible, and then I want to now quickly create, my dev environment within my enterprise, which comprises of one Windows 2016 server or 2019 server with SQL server and then join them together. They should be able to talk to each other. That was already done by all these IT professionals. But now with the advent of cloud from the last 10 years or so, well, the now we can take our software and then we can actually represent them as code. That's what this is all about, right? In the cloud area, in the cloud arena, it's all about I need a resource group, I need a service plan, I need a function app, I need a this, I need that. That's it. So, but I can take all this infrastructural resources and then explain them as a code. Why would I want to do that? Let's take a look at that. Well, in the first place, what is IAC? What is infrastructure as a code, right? Well, it's very simple. I've taken a quote from very famous person in Microsoft. His name is Guggenheimer. I think he's head of, he's a chief customer advocate on the Azure DevOps team, meaning he works with customers of Microsoft and understands what they want in terms of DevOps. So what he says is, infrastructure code is nothing but management of infrastructure. Well, what is an infrastructure? Network, virtual machine, load balancer, connection topology, web app, container, you name it, any resource that is there in the cloud, well, that's an infrastructure for me. I need that infrastructure to be there in order to put my code. For example, if I want to deploy my web application, first I need a web app. That's the infrastructure, the slot in the Azure. I need that to be there. Once it is there, then I can write a CI or a CD and say like, okay, here is my binary, please run the binary and then give it to Azure, right? But the infrastructure has to be there first. So that's what we mean by management of infrastructure. It can be anything. But how do you manage this? In a descriptive model. That's the key here. Descriptive model. Well, can I do without IAC? Yes, you can do without IAC. Nobody tells you that you cannot do cloud development without IAC. No, you can just go to Azure portal, click, and then you're done with your environment. You created a resource. You went to Azure portal. You said add new resource group. Inside the resource group, you said add new function app, add new plan. Add new key vault, add whatever. You can do everything in a button click. But if I come to you now and then ask you like, hey, look, I need another environment immediately. Can you create it in next 10 minutes? It depends on how fast you can click, and it depends on which region of Azure you are sitting, and then is the bandwidth there correct, and then how fast can Azure do this, right? So that's what the thing is. If you did your most of the infrastructure in a click manner. Now, how do I understand what is my infrastructure for my application? How can I see it? Well, you will have to go into the Azure portal and then see it. Sometimes I take a stand as if like, no, nobody in the team will get access to this resource group. Sorry, it's secure. Nobody can see production. So if you cannot see production, how do you know what is your infrastructure? Right? You want to lock down your production resource groups to only few people who can go in. Why? Any small changes done, well, your platform may be having hiccups, right? So you want to control the access to your production resource group. You can do anything you want in dev or test or whatever, but not in production. So we always put a gate to we call it as identity access. In Azure, it says IAM, Identity and Access Management. So we put policies saying like, okay, for this resource group, only Lohith or only my boss is able to come in, or maybe my DevOps lead is able to come in. So the key here is management of infrastructure in a descriptive model, but how? Using the same versioning as your development team does. What your development team does? It uses source code. They write code, check in, they write code, commit, and then it keeps on building a version history. So I can go back and see who changed a line of code at when and why did they change it? Where is the requirement? I can do the full traceability matrix if I go source control way. That's exactly what we are doing with infrastructure as a code. You define your infrastructure as a code, right? Of course, there are certain language for that. So you use that language and then you define it. Once you have defined your infrastructure as a code, you check it into your source control. you can do your PR, you can do your reviews, you can first make sure that everything is fine, and then you can deploy it to or check into your source code, and then you can actually now start looking at the versioning of your infrastructure too. When did we change infrastructure? Why? What was the reason to the change? Who changed it? Everything can be done like that. So if you're more interested to just check the what is infrastructure as a code, just go through the bottom link that I have here, docsmicrosoft.com, devops/learn what is infrastructure as a code. There's a small little paragraphs which Guggenheimer has written. It makes every sense. It makes every sense there to why you need infrastructure as a code. So that is why I focus mostly on getting right up front doing an IAC. Now, just by thinking about IAC, do I need anything? Well, yeah, there are different tools of the trade. Today, I will be talking about one of the tools called Pulumi. It's been there from past 1.5 years or 2 years. I like it. I like it very much. Is this the only tool? No. You might have heard about Terraform. You might have heard about Azure Resource Manager, or ARM as we call it, ARM templates. There's a new project Microsoft has started. It's called as Project Bicep. I'm pretty much interested in that one too, but it is still at a very, very, very nascent stage. It's not yet matured enough to do whatever I want to do. Terraform, ARM, Azure CLI. I can do infrastructure as a code using Azure CLI. One of the demos that I did, I wrote the complete infrastructure in Azure CLI. So there are different tools of the trade, but today I'm going to be looking at one tool called Pulumi. There is a major reason why I'm looking at Pulumi. That's because Pulumi allows me to use the language that I am well versed from 20 years. I know C# from 20 years. Pulumi allows me to do the infrastructure as a code using the same language that I know of, the C#. That's why I'm very much interested about Pulumi, because it gives me that power that as a dev, now I can do infrastructure also. I don't need a specialized DevOps team. Now, I don't know if you guys have noticed or not, but over the last 5 or 10 years, the tide has shifted. You no longer have dedicated members in the team. You are a cross-functional team, as we call it. In agile terminology, it's like, oh, you got to be the cross-functional team, or you got to be the, I don't know, there used to be a very specific super productive or some team. There's a very specific agile terminology, I forgot. But yeah, I don't need to, of course, we will need a DevOps member in the team. I'm not saying no, but I'm saying, like, as a dev, now I can start creating infrastructure as a code, pass it on to the DevOps and say, look, this is my infrastructure. Go ahead, you do your next step. What is the next step? Create a CI, create a CD. I don't want to be there because I've created my infrastructure. I've described my infrastructure. Go ahead, you start doing whatever you need to do to make sure that it goes and sits in the Azure. Yeah, so that is available. So if you go to pulumi.com, this is what they say. They say Pulumi is modern infrastructure as a code. What do we mean by that? Create, deploy, manage infrastructure on any cloud using familiar programming languages and tools. Today, I'm talking only about C#, but I can write Pulumi using TypeScript. I mean, I can do infrastructure as a code using TypeScript, using Python, using Go, using C#. Well, they are supporting a wide variety of languages. You may be a TypeScript person, you may be a JavaScript person, and you don't know anything about C#, but you want to do infrastructure as a code. No problem. Take Pulumi, start writing TypeScript. Now, within an hour, it is very, very, very high level that I need to talk when it comes to what exactly is Pulumi, right? Well, this puts a very clear picture about what exactly is Pulumi. From a Pulumi's perspective, if you want to understand what is Pulumi, Pulumi is like your middle layer, which is sitting between you and Azure, and he understands how to convert your C# into all the Azure commands that needs to be there. Azure as a platform has a lot of management APIs, as we call it, meaning any resource that I need to create, well, basically all these tools, all they're doing is they go to a very specific endpoint and then just say, boom, HTTP post, to, let's say, Azure/API/resource groups. Yeah, so that means I'm doing an HTTP post to the endpoint and saying like, please create me a new resource group. Here's the security token, meaning I need to be a valid user on Azure. I need to have access token, blah, 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 all those things. Now, Pulumi takes care of all this communication. All you do is, Pulumi, I need you to create resource group. After that, I need you to create a function. I need you to create a plan. That's all you do, right? Now, from a overview perspective, yes, this is a C# project. Like, sorry, it's majorly a .NET project, .NET Core to be in fact. And in the .NET Core project, you use C# as a language. So that means you use the same constructs that you know of. There's nothing new you need to learn. Then you have a program, and in the program, you define your resources. The inputs are nothing but the name of the resource, what SKU it has to be, blah, 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 all those stuff. The output is nothing but, should you output the resource ID, should you output the function ID, storage key, although if you want, you can do all those outputs and then I can later read it. And then the beauty of Pulumi is it has a concept of stack. Well, if you take a look at my cloud solution, yes, I have a resource group. Inside the resource group, I have a storage account, I have a app service plan, and I have a function app. Now, the resource don't change across my stacks or understand the stack as an environment. The resources don't change between your dev environment, QA environment, prod environment. But what changes? Can anybody just think what changes between your environment? It's the naming of your resource itself. It's the probably the licensing of or the SKUs between your environment. So typically what we do is whenever we are doing web apps on a dev environment, we always use a free tire, whereas we change the tire on production, right? So those kind of differences are there, but the resource itself doesn't change. So that's why Pulumi has a concept of stack. You define your resource and say like, look, I have 3 environments, stack dev, stack QA, stack prod, and I can control the naming of each environment differently. It's the same resource called function app, but it is named differently in dev, named differently in QA, named differently in prod. So when I tell Pulumi that go ahead, please create it and then use it, he knows exactly what needs to be done. So this is a pretty good picture of what Pulumi is all about. I have a project, it's a .NET Core project, and I use C# as a language. Then I define a program. Basically, a program is nothing but it comprises of your stack. And I define the resources, and I define how many environments do I have? Dev, QA, prod. Typically, 3 environments you start. They don't call it as environment, but their terminology is it's a stack. And for you as a developer, understand stack as environment that you have in your cloud, wherever your cloud is. Now, how does Pulumi understand what to do? Well, the crux of Pulumi, or the main point about Pulumi, is it uses what's called as a state. The metadata of your infrastructure is stored by Pulumi, meaning when you first create your infrastructure and say, I want 3 resources, yes, that's a metadata that Pulumi is storing. So metadata is equal to Pulumi state, meaning every stack has its own state now. If you created a dev stack and then there is a infrastructure metadata for the dev stack, it's this resource group, it is this resource, all those is a metadata. So that's what they store. Now the metadata is a Pulumi state. Each stack has its own state. You don't need to worry. It's all done by Pulumi. I'm just giving you an overview. You just define your stack. Pulumi takes it over. Okay. Now, state helps Pulumi when and how to create, read, update, delete your infrastructure. So this is how it works. In my program or in my project, I wrote, I need a resource group and I need a storage account. Let's work with these 2 resources. When I write this as a program and then I run Pulumi, Pulumi is going to go to my Azure and then sees like, hey, he said he wants a resource group. Now he's running a development stack. So do we have this resource group? Do we have this one? Oh no, okay, I need to create. Okay. And when I say Pulumi, please go ahead, create it, he's going to go create it and then updates his metadata saying like, yes, now we have it. Next, let's assume I delete the storage account. And then I say, Pulumi, can you now go and then figure out what needs to be done? it is going to generate the new metadata. Take a look at what's the metadata already stored. It's like, oh, we had 2 resources currently deployed, but your new metadata says you want to delete the storage account. Okay, I will have to delete storage account from the Azure, whatever stack you have, the environment. If you say yes, it's going to go and then delete, update the metadata, store the metadata again. So it's basically doing a left hand, right hand combination, comparison, and then making sure that your infrastructure is always at the desired state, as we call it. Okay, so I know it's pretty much new, but don't worry. Now, when it comes to state management itself, Pulumi has 2 types of state management. They call it as backend. The state has to be maintained. Sorry, the state has to be stored in a backend. There are 2 types of backend. Pulumi Cloud. If you go to app.pulumi.com, you can create your own account there. There is a individual account. There's a team account. Individual account probably has some restriction, like you can run only one app, or I don't know. I've not tried it. Or Pulumi is, by the way, open source, right? You don't need to pay anything. You just start using Pulumi. That's another beautiful thing about Pulumi. The self-managed backend is nothing but bring your own object store. If you are coming from AWS, you can provide Pulumi the S3 bucket. I'm today on Azure, so I can provide my blob storage and then tell Pulumi that, look, here is a blob storage. Please store your backend here. So that means I'm giving the backend to that. That's why I wrote it as bring your own object store, right? There's no word like that. You have BYOD, bring your own device, but I just made it up like bring your own object store. It doesn't matter. If you're on Google, GCP, well, GCP has a storage, so just provide the storage. Pulumi is going to store the maintenance there. It's going to store the state in your object store. Now, when it comes to infrastructure as a code and DevOps for our project, there are 3 things that we will need to do. First is, because we are using Pulumi, we need to create a state CI/CD, meaning I need to create a backend for Pulumi to store the state, correct? So I need a CI/CD for that. Then my actual infrastructure, the stack, as I call it, it needs a CI/CD. We need to do those 2. And then we need to do the resource CI/CD. Today, we're going to be focusing on the first 2. The state, how to prepare the state, and then how to create a CI/CD for the state, and then we will look at the stack, and then how to create the stack infrastructure, and then how to create a CI/CD for that. The resource CI/CD is nothing but I'm writing function. The function needs a CI and a CD. So we're going to look at it, in the next episode. It's basically writing Azure pipelines. Whereas today it's about the state, and the stack is written, or the stacks, you need the infrastructure as a code for your stack is written using Pulumi. Some of the things that we will be doing is, first, let's take a look at how do we create a state infra, because you cannot use Pulumi to create Pulumi's backend or the infrastructure for Pulumi's state. It's like a chicken and egg problem, right? I want to maintain a state for Pulumi, but can I use Pulumi to create its own, infrastructure for that? No, sorry, you can't do that. So what do we do? Well, we're very simple. We will use PowerShell script, and then we will use Azure CLI commands. Basically, Azure CLI has commands like create a resource group, create a storage account, create a container, create a key vault. We're going to see whether we do the key vault or not. And then you need to create the build, meaning your script needs to be packaged. And then you will take this package script and then deploy it. Right? That's the first step that you need to do when you're going with infrastructure as a code with Pulumi. So I'm going to quickly jump to, the code now. Let me bring in my code. Yes. Let me bring in. Let me see if there's any questions so far. If there's any question, please type it out so that I will be able to see if I need to answer it then and there. All the code, what you're going to see, has been put up on my GitHub. So let me also show you what I have. If you go to github.com and go to Lohith GN, and let's go to repositories. And I've created a folder, a repo called MS SGUG webinar, and there's a README part 1, blah, 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 the link to the YouTube and then slide deck, everything. Now what I've done is there is a main branch. Yes, the main branch will keep getting all the updated code. But if you want to see what is happening in part 1, what is happening in part 2, what you can do is you can go to branches, check out whatever branch you want. Today, I'm on part 2 branch. What I did was I took part 1 and then created a branch out of it, meaning I merged part 1 to main. And from main, now I've created another branch called part 2. So whatever I'm doing today is already checked in here, and then you can start looking at it. Okay, somebody posted the link. Thank you very much, Asif. So let's see. Yeah, so that's something. What I've done is so this is typically how I lay out my. I'm very particular about naming and then folder structure. Some of my friends in the chat, if there's anybody, they will understand. Like I fight with them. Like no, this is not the right name. We got to have a good name. All those things. What I've done is there is 2 different folders here: infrastructure and then pipeline. The concept is very simple. The code is in GitHub, but I'm using Azure DevOps to do everything in terms of pipeline, the CI/CD, everything. So what I did was, I like Azure DevOps very much because it has all this flexibility, wherein like your code can be anywhere, but you can start building the. Oh, I need to save. Okay, let me go to this. Yeah. So if you see here, I just created a project, and if you don't want repos, you don't need to use it. You can go into project settings and then you can turn off like, I don't want the repos here. If you see here, you can switch on or off. You can use the boards. Well, I don't need the boards. I can turn it off. I don't need the repo. I can turn it off. Today, in this example, I'm just using the pipelines feature, and I will be using what's called as a multi-stage pipelines. Okay, we will talk about that, or we'll take a look at that. What is that? And then the pipelines is the script that is required for Azure, and the infrastructure is the script that we will use. For example, if you see the infrastructure, I have a state folder, and then I have to do API infra. Well, the naming convention is very simple, right? This is about infra, and the state folder is about creating the infrastructure to maintain the state for Pulumi. To do API infra this is the infrastructure for the 2D API. Very simple. If you take a look at the state, I just have one PowerShell file. So let's take a look at the PowerShell file. So here, I'm going to close everything. I need to make sure that I don't lose this command window. Otherwise, I will have to reset a lot of things. Let's go into the infrastructure and then state. And then let's take a look at the PowerShell. I hope everybody is able to see my code correctly. Otherwise, let me know. I can just bump up the code a little bit. Very simple. I need something to be sent into this particular PowerShell script, and that's the service principal object ID. Oh yeah, I forgot. Before we start, one main important thing that we need to do is create a project in DevOps, then go to project settings, then go to service connections. Now, how does Azure DevOps work is it needs connections between your GitHub and connection to Azure itself. Why? Because I want to read code from GitHub and I want to push code to Azure. So that means I need to be authenticated. Your Azure DevOps organization project needs to be authenticated with Azure. So what I've done already is I've set up all the connections. I don't want to spend time in defining how the connection needs to be done. It's very simple. I use what's called as a, let me show it to you. The best way is to use what we call as service principles. That's typically what I tell my team. So let's go to Active Directory. So what I've done is I've just created an app registration and I named it Contoso To Do API AZDOSP. So that stands for, well, this is for the Contoso organization. To Do API is the project. AZDO is the Azure DevOps, and SP stands for service principle. I follow conventions for everything so that it's very easy. All you need is you need the object ID, and then you need to set up a secret. Once you have done these two, you just have to come in here and then you can set up the service principal. So let me show it to you. If I say new service connection and I do Azure Resource Manager, and then I say next. Notice here it has Azure Service Principal Automatic or Principal. So I go in the route of manual. I go to Azure, set up the service principal, copy the object ID and then the secret. Come back here. It will automatically figure out my subscription. You just need to enter the subscription. Then the principal ID, that's the object ID. And then the key is nothing but the secret. And once your subscription is known, the tenant ID is known, then I can name the connection string. So not a problem. So I have already done that because I don't want you to sit and see here how this needs to be done, and because that's not the important factor here. Is there a question?
No, not yet. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I thought somebody was trying to ask a question. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now let's take a look at the script. Script is very simple. I'm following a convention. You can go online and then look for, hey, what's the Azure naming convention? RG dash is the prefix for anything that you want to do resource group. ST is the storage account name. KV dash is the key vault. Actually, I was trying to use key vault for a secure key management, but I'm not able to, so I'm going to ditch the key vault for now. And then it's very simple. If you look at the PowerShell, it is creating the Azure resource group. It's creating the storage account. It is creating the storage account key. It's creating a container. So I'm creating by default a dev container. Remember, we are in sprint 0 and we want to get the dev environment up and running. So that is why I'm writing my source code, and then Pulumi needs a specific container to manage a state of each stack. So I'm going to first start with a development stack, right? So our development environment. So I've created a container called dev. Let's forget about the key vault for now. That's it. So that is all this particular PowerShell script is doing. Done. My infrastructure for Pulumi's state backend is done. I've created we need to run this. Not yet, but the point is, to manage the state for Pulumi, we have the resource group, we have an account, and account has a container. That is all Pulumi needs in terms of the backend. Now, once my infrastructure script is done, now I need to do a CI/CD on this, correct? Because this is just a file inside your using PowerShell couples it to Windows. Is there a cross-platform? Very good question, Praveen. You are looking at as if like this is a PowerShell script. Yes, it is a PowerShell script, but Microsoft is betting heavy on cross-platform. So they came up with what is known as PowerShell Core. PowerShell and PowerShell Core, two different things. PowerShell runs on only Windows. PowerShell Core runs on Linux, Mac, and Windows. There you go. So in Azure Pipeline, I can actually go and then tell like, hey, look, here is my PowerShell script, but I want you to use PowerShell Core so that you can run on Ubuntu. In fact, my pipeline is running on Ubuntu. It's not running on a Windows machine. Yes, it's been there. PowerShell Core has been there from a year or 1.5 years, I believe. So it's been there. Microsoft is betting, it's doing a lot of things on the cross-platform. So that's a good thing. So now I've created the script. Now, after this is done, what I need to do is I need to create my pipeline. Pipeline is a way to tell Azure that, look, I want you to do something to take my code and then do something with the code. So I have pipelines folder, remember? And then I created a state folder. And then here is my, I call it as infrastructure state pipeline. And this defines every time you run your pipeline, this is the name it will get. What am I saying? Well, the name is infra state, and then take the date, and then this is a revision number. In one day, if I run 100 times the same build, this will be today's date dot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 till 100. That's a revision number. Now, what am I saying? Well, this pipeline should be run anytime a code is checked inside this folder called infrastructure/state. And it may have any file. So if any file is changed inside this folder, please run this pipeline. And I'm creating a couple of variables. In fact, before coming here, what I've done is I've created what's called as a, we call it as a variable groups. So if you have 100 pipelines and all the 100 pipeline need to use the same variables, like for example, Azure connection, you just create one variable group, put all the keys inside this variable group, and then that's it. Everybody in the pipeline can reuse this. So what I've done is I've already created a variable group, put in some bunch of variables that is required for my pipeline to function. And in the pipeline, I say, hey, Azure, please take all the variables in this group and make it available to this pipeline. Okay, that's one thing. And then I have defined three variables. One is this a main branch that got updated? I've not done anything yet, but this is just to showcase like you can check which branch it is getting the updates. And I've created some variable like artifact name, what should be, where is the infra script? So it is here. Now, the concept is very simple. You have what's called as the stages. So you can define any number of stages. So currently in my pipeline, I have two stages, a build stage and a deploy stage. A build can have any number of jobs. So currently I have only one job, meaning a stage can have any number of jobs. I'm doing only one job, which is building. And a job can have any number of steps. So I have two steps, copy the file and then publish it to a specific folder. So what am I doing? Remember the PowerShell script? I just need to copy it and keep it into what we call as a staging directory. And then I publish that as part of my build stage. My build stage output is nothing but a folder with that PowerShell script. Okay. Now, I have defined a deploy stage and I say that deploy depends on build. If the build stage failed, deploy is not going to run. And this is where I was talking about. I'm not use the main. So for example, I can say that do the deployment only from a main branch. It's up to you. Different teams use different mechanism. Typically, we deploy from version branches, not from a main branch. So it's up to you, whichever we say like, deploy if it is from any version branch. Up to you. So I'm just saying depends on build stage. And then the deploy is very simple. I'm downloading the artifact, which is nothing but a PowerShell script. And then I'm just telling Azure CLI, I can use Azure CLI because the script inside is nothing but all the Azure CLI commands. So notice here the question about can PowerShell run in Ubuntu? Well, this is what it is. You will need to say like, look, Azure CLI, I want you to run this script, which is available in this particular path, and run it in PS Core or PowerShell Core. And I'm passing an argument. Remember, in the PS file, I'm expecting the service principal object ID to come in. So I'm saying this is mandatory. You need to send it. So how do we send it? Well, very simple. You can just come in here and then you can say arguments, and this has been defined in the variable group, and I'm just getting it and then passing it into as an argument. That is all. This is infrastructure as a code. We have created the infrastructure. It's source controlled. We have created the pipeline. It is source control. Now, I've already, in the interest of the time, I've already run this like from morning. I've been running this like 5 to 10 times. So let's take a look at this. Before you can do anything, this is only source code. Remember, this is only source code. It's in your repo. It's not in Azure. So you need to go into pipelines, and then you will have to select a new pipeline. Yes, leave it. Here, you need to, because in my situation, the code is not inside Azure DevOps. I need to say that, look, my code is in GitHub. Please, can you please go and then figure out which repo is it? So I have already set up the GitHub connection. So it is able to figure out like, okay, I saw the GitHub connection. Let me go there. And here is my repo. So I select the repo. It is asking me, do you want me to automatically create a pipeline? Like these are all the template pipeline that are there. I'm like, no, I've already written my pipeline. So stop doing whatever you want to do. Let me pick my pipeline. So now here I can say like, look, my pipeline. So this is one of the features that I like about Azure DevOps. I've been doing GitHub Actions. It's not this easy. So in GitHub Actions, you need to get everything into the main branch. My point is, well, I still am developing it. I can't get it to the main branch. So can you please pick up from my branch, which is part 2 infrastructure branch? And then Azure is like, yes, I find this many YAML files in your this branch. Which one do you want to pick? Like, I like this feature. So we are doing infra state pipeline. It is going to crib probably. It will say like, hey, look, we already have it. So, but after this, what it does is it just creates the pipeline because I've already given it. Okay, so I'm going to cancel it and then go to pipeline and take a look at infra state pipeline. Notice from morning I've been just running. Now what I can do is I can just run this pipeline. And this is yet in the part 2 branch. It's not in the main branch, right? So that's it. I will now click on run and my CI/CD is done for my infra state management. State management infrastructure, Pulumi state management. So notice here, this is the multi stage as we call it. It says stages. So I have a build infra state stage and then I have a deploy infra state stage. So I can click on build infra state. It is going to tell me a couple of things. Basically, it is going to show me what is happening. In the interest of the time, I'm going to pick already which has been executed and just show it to you what is happening. There you go. I have this both the stages green, and notice this, the artifact, right? If I click on this, it is going to show me what it contains. It should contain infra state, infrastructure, state, and then here is my PowerShell script. So I've packaged it and then put it to the build artifact. So let's go back and let's take a look at the steps. It is just going to do what I told it to do. It is checking out my code. It copies the artifact. It publishes the artifacts. And then if the build stage was fine, then it checks out the code again because it's a new job. Download the artifact. And then notice what is happening. It is deploying the infra state. And this is the output. Creating resource group, creating storage account, creating storage key, checking for key exists, add access policy to key vault. Done. I'm done with my deployment. The infrastructure is done for the state management. If we now go to my resource group, remember the resource group was RG to do API infra state. Let me see what it was. I think looks like I'm running a couple of things. Let's take a look at, yeah, PS1. So this was RG to do API infra. So let's go to resource group, RG to do API infra. Here, it's RG to do API infra. Right? Then if you notice here, I've created a storage account and I will have one single container called dev. There it is. That's it. Now we have set up our state management backend for Pulumi things to start. So let me bring up my slide. So this is all we have done, build and the deploy of the state management. Next is, well, now we need to build the actual infrastructure for our environment. So what do we need to do? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to install Pulumi. Now, I've already installed Pulumi. One of the ways you can install Pulumi is on Windows is you can just use what's called as a Chocolatey. Chocolatey is a package manager for Windows. Like if you want to just install Node.js, if you have ever installed Java, you know the pain you go through to figure out which version of Java you need to go and then get it. Right? I always hated like you go to some page and then figure out is it JDK, is it JRE? I always used to confuse. So with Chocolatey, it's very simple. I can just go to command. In fact, Chocolatey is a software. So let me show it to you. And here, so here I can just say Choco. I think it is version. Yeah, I'm on whatever version. So I can say Choco search, I believe. Yeah, so this is Choco. You can search for, you can search for packages, and then you can say, for example, in Pulumi's case, you can just say Choco install Pulumi. Now, Chocolatey will go ahead and then figure out what's the latest version of Pulumi, download, and then install it on your machine. I've already done that. Then what you need to do is, if you now take a look at Pulumi, and then you say new, and then say help. It has a bunch of things that comes up, and then notice here, These are all the different types of templates that are available. For example, do you want to do infrastructure for Ali Cloud with C#? Well, you can. C#, F#, Go, JavaScript, Python, TypeScript, Visual Basic. If you're a Visual Basic fan, well, there you go. You can do infrastructure development using Visual Basic, right? Those are the days. Now I'm using what's called as Azure Next Gen C#. It's a next iteration of Pulumi. I think they changed the whole model of how they do, communication with Azure. They're now directly working with ARM. Before it used to be their own handcrafted layer. Now that's gone. They're directly talking to the ARM layer of Azure. So this is what you need to do. If you see here, to get started with a Pulumi Azure Next Gen project is simple. Pulumi new Azure Next Gen C#. Give it a name. And by default, when you're creating a project, you can just say that, by the way, just create me the dev stack for now. I will create the other stacks later, but for now, just create me a dev stack. So -S stands for stack, and then I'm saying dev, and then I'm using a secrets provider, which is a passphrase, meaning any secrets that I want to store inside Pulumi, it is going to use this passphrase mechanism to encrypt, meaning it is going to ask me a password, and then it is going to use that as a salt to encrypt all the secrets within Pulumi's configuration. And then if you want to create new stack, you can always say Pulumi stack init dev, and then secret provider's passphrase. And I can start putting configurational keys on Pulumi. For example, I'm going to be using a single config today, which is called as environment. What environment is my stack running? Oh, it's a dev environment. So you can do Pulumi config set key value. I've already done all this stuff, and I'm going to show it to the code. It's pretty interesting to look at the code. So notice here, this is the project that Pulumi will create. Let me zoom up a little bit. And well, it's a .NET Core app 3.1. It's a .NET Core. That's what is important for me. And then they have a package, Pulumi.Azure Next Gen. Now let's take a look at the program file. There's only one line, and then the one line is basically they have what's called as deployment.run async. And this is something that I have done. I said, hey, this is the stack that I want to create. I want to name this my infrastructure as to do API stack, right? Then let's take a look at the to-do API stack. It's all C#. There's no change. And here is how I'm hooking into Pulumi's config file. I mean, configuration, setup. This code is auto-generated. Yes, not everything. Let me try to create a new one from somewhere. That's a good question. So if you want to see how it is, so where am I? Okay, let me go to C:/W, maybe we create, okay, let's go there, mkdir Pulumi. Oh, okay, I already have Pulumi, so cd Pulumi. Then I'm in Pulumi now, and then I'm going to do mkdir maybe foo infra, cd foo infra. Then here I can just say Pulumi new. What was the thing? Azure Next Gen C#. So I can say Azure Next Gen C#. Oh, I made a mistake. C#. Okay, I know what is happening. So I need to do Pulumi login local. Yeah, so logged into this. Okay, now I can do Pulumi new Azure C#. So it's going to start asking me names now. So what is the project name you want to give? Well, by default, it's foo infra. I'm going to use that. A minimal Azure Next Gen C#. Okay, that's fine. Stack name. By default, it is going to create a dev stack. Okay, sorry, could not create a dev stack already exists. Let's say foo dev for now. Enter your, so as I said, I'm going to use a passphrase. So I'm going to just create something for now, but you don't need to use a passphrase. Passphrase do not match. What? Okay. What the hell? Enter your passphrase product. Yes. Okay. Come on, what is happening? Yeah. Crap. I don't know what is happening. Give me a second. My keyboard is acting up a little bit. Let me quickly come back and then show it to you what is created. So what it creates is it creates the program file with this single line. It creates this particular class file with a bare minimum a code, which is like one resource group, one storage account. That's all it creates. And then, of course, it is using its own YAML file, like, it is for its metadata. And then it also has, remember the dev stack that I created, the encryption salt is here. And then I already have created one configuration value called environment. And then this stack is environment value is dev. And then I wrote all this stuff, which is config. Yes, I want it. So I read the environment configuration value from Pulumi, right? Then the app name, I've set it up to a normal string. It's a C# string. And notice what I can do. I can do string interpolation. I was so happy to see this. Now I want to create a resource group name. And in my company, we follow a very convention what most of the guidelines say. And that is every resource has its own prefix, right? And notice what I've done. This is a C# class. I can do F12 now. And this is a C# class resource prefixes. Resource group RG dash, app service plan ASP dash, storage ST, function app func dash. That's the prefix, right? And I'm just using that as a normal C# file. Notice how my naming convention works. This is the prefix, this is the app name, this is the environment, right? Tomorrow, when I create another stack called test, all I need to do is just set the config called env to value called test. And then automatically all my resources become RG dash to do API dash test. That's the best practice that I follow. Like I don't want anything hard coded. It all has to be running through one specific key. And we follow a convention. The project name is to do API and prefixes we all know. And the suffix is the environment. And then the only thing that changes or never changes is this. The only thing changes is the environment. Now, how can I create my infrastructure? For my serverless application, I need one resource group. Okay, what's the resource group name? Well, I've defined the resource group name here, and this will become rg-to-do API-dev. What's the location? Well, because I'm in Singapore, so it's a Southeast Asia. If you want, you can make this as a configurable value and then pass it from somewhere. Okay, that's it. I'm my resource group. I've defined my resource group. Now, I need a storage account. Okay. This storage account should be created in this resource group. The name of the storage account is this. The location of the storage account is this. Oh, it needs an SKU, and the SKU is LRS, locally redundant service. And then the kind of the storage account is storage v2. There is nothing here that I don't understand. As a programmer, as a developer, the moment I see like, you're creating a storage account, you're setting bunch of properties. That's what I want. Right? I don't want my developers to like, oh, sorry, I can't take a look at it and then I don't know what is happening. No, I want you to figure out what is this whole infrastructure thing is all about. Well, because if somebody is not there, well, everybody should be in a position to, oh yeah, I know what is happening, right? That's the point here. Then I'm creating an app service plan. It uses this particular, and by the way, this objects that you're seeing here, the classes that you're seeing here, app service plan, storage account, resource group. This is what Pulumi gives you. I don't need to worry about anything. I just want to use these resources. That's all. All this thing, they convert it into what needs to happen on the Azure side. So now I've created the app service plan, location, resource group, name of the function app, and then I'm creating a what called as a consumption plan. So for the consumption plan, it's known as dynamic tier with a name y1 and size is y1. That's how Azure works. And then I'm creating the function app. Remember the infrastructure that I was talking about? In order to deploy a function, I first need to have the slot in the Azure. That's function app. So that's what I'm creating here. And in Pulumi, the way you say is this is a web app, but the kind is function app. It has a name, resource group, location, and server form ID is nothing but, and notice here, this is where infrastructure as a code shines. I just created app service plan, correct? Now, the web app has to be given this plan. So how do I give it? Very simple. App service plan, that identifier, I'm done, right? It knows that it has to be it has to use that plan. Then this is what I like. I don't like setting parameters, everything manually. On this particular function app, I'm setting app settings right from my infrastructure. What is it? I need to store the storage connection string for the function. The way function works in Azure is it needs a storage account. So what am I doing? Well, I'm setting an app setting. The key name is Azure Web Job Storage. And notice here, I just created a storage. Let me get its name. I just created the storage. Let me get the storage key. Everything is scripted out. This is the descriptive model we were talking about. Okay, so this is how it pretty much kind of works, and then that's it. That's my stack for today. Like, just to start with baby step, this is the stack. Now, what can I do with this, right? So let me show you. So this is exactly the same, but I'm in Visual Studio Code. Now I can come here and then say like, Pulumi, can you please preview my stack called dev? Remember, we have never run the development stack, development environment. Why? Because we are still writing code, correct? But I can say, hey, can you go and then please preview my, okay, what did I say? Yeah, there you go. What Pulumi is doing now is it is actually taking my C# project, building it. Notice here, it is doing .NET, and everybody needs to pay close attention to what is being shown on your screen now. It says, look, at this point of time, you don't have a dev environment, and you are asking me, and you are given me a stack. Based on that metadata, I feel I need to create 5 resources. Sorry, 4 resources. What are those resources? I need to create a resource group called RG to do API dev. Remember, my source code, I never mentioned the name completely, correct? See how I've done the naming. I said prefixes and then environment. Now, since I said, please preview the dev environment, it figured out the configuration value called dev, and then it appended it, and then like, oh yeah, this is your resource group name. And then it has st to do API dev, asp to do API dev, function to do API dev. Right now, if I just run this from my local machine, then the state is maintained in my local machine, which is what I don't want to do. So now the second thing that we need to do is we have now finished the infrastructure part of it, but we need to do a CI/CD for this one. So in order to do the CI/CD, it's still the same. You need to write a pipeline, right? Nice features. Yeah, of course. I'm all about nice features. So you ask me anything, I'll be able to tell you on all these things. I need to create a pipeline now. Pipeline is very simple. What I want to do is in my build stage, I just want to make sure that because this is a .NET Core application, I want to make sure it builds correctly. So what do? I use .NET 3.1. That's what I'm saying here. Use .NET 3.1. And then I run the .NET Core CLI. And the command is build. And I tell which folder to build. In this case, it is the infrastructure and then to do API infra. And the configuration to build is release. Right? If there is no problem, if the build happened successfully, then we go to what called as a development deployment. Notice here I'm doing a .NET, I do a Azure CLI, and then I need to set a variable at runtime because I know this is a dev environment, so I need to write that, right? And then I need to say Pulumi. So Pulumi, what Pulumi has done is they have created a Azure DevOps pipeline task. Otherwise, I will need to install the Pulumi CLI. I will need to do a Pulumi login, and then I will need to do a Pulumi preview. And then I need to do Pulumi up. So there is another command called up, meaning update, meaning go ahead, deploy this to Azure, whatever connection that I've told you. So in order to minimize me writing a lot of code, they have already created a task The task takes a Azure subscription. Task takes a command. So I'm saying preview. And I need to say which stack this preview needs to be done. And what is the working directory where this needs to be done. And I'm saying, yeah, if the stack is not found, please create it. So this is the metadata that it is going to create, right? Now, I have not done any deployment yet. OK, I ran out of time before I could create. So what I will try to do is I will need to see. We'll come back to this. Let's go and then look at the pipeline. So I've already created the pipeline. This is the pipeline. And if I go to my pipelines, the same manner, you will need to say create a new pipeline. And I've already created infra pipeline. Right. So here I've already run this. If it is just going to do a preview, it is not going to deploy yet. I will need to write the deployment task. But notice what is happening. It just did the .NET build of my infrastructure project. It was a success. Then it goes to deploy to dev. And in the deploy to dev, I'm doing Pulumi preview. And notice here, we see exactly the same things here. It says like, I think I see that you don't have any, you see here, create this, create this, create this. So let me see quickly, what is it that I need to do? Or I can show it to you from my command prompt, and it is exactly the same that's going to work on the CI/CD. I'll finish it and then I'll put it to the GitHub, but this is exactly what happens. Now, let me go to my Azure. You will see that I do not have any resource group with the name RG to do API dev. I don't have that. I just have RG to do API infra, but I don't have an actual environment where I can deploy my function app, right? I don't have it. So now what I'm going to do is right from my mission, I can say Pulumi up dev, meaning create my dev environment. So it needs the passphrase. So I'm going to give the passphrase. There is a mechanism to tell Pulumi that, look, don't build the project every time. There is already a pre-built, DLL. Use that pre-built DLL. Now, notice something happening here now. Let me try to scroll this up. It says, look, I need to create 5 resources. Do you want to perform this update? Use arrows to move, enter to select, type to filter. Right? I can do like yes, no. I will say yes. The moment I say yes, it is going to go and then update my dev environment, meaning it is now doing all the creation on my Azure subscription. There you go. It's again building it. That's fine. That's typically how it does. Creating failed. Account name. My bad. This is good. Let me go back to my to-do API stack. What I did was the storage account name cannot contain dashes. So I forgot this. So what I need to do is I just need to do this. And then I can do Pulumi preview yes dev. Let's see what it does. I think it has finished others. What? Incorrect passphrase. Pulumi preview yes dev. Decrypting. Okay, just give me a second. Let me set. Don't worry, this is not the production that I'm doing. So this is just a demo. So I will remove that. I think I broke my demo. Okay, let me try to push this to GitHub. and then we will try to do that. Okay, what did I do? Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to check in the code. Update storage account name. And then let's push it to origin. Now I can go back to pipeline. And by the way, this is exactly the point I was trying to make, right? So now, because I have a pipeline, I can just check in code, come in here, and then start looking at, okay, what can I do? So maybe my local, setup is gone rogue now with Pulumi. I will need to see what happened, but this should be fine. I've already set it up here. So this is a live build that's going to happen now. So this, by the end of this, what will happen is I can run what's called as a Pulumi up, and the Pulumi up will take everything and then create it on the Azure, and that's part of your CI/CD now. And then anytime you have a new feature, and the new feature, by the way, you can take a look at here. The resource group has been created, RG to do API dev. And it has already created the plan. It had a problem with storage account. If the storage account is not created, it cannot create the function app. So that's what happened. But it has created the storage account. And notice it followed the convention ASP dash the project name to do API dash dev. Done. Now let's see what happens here. It should actually, if it does preview, let's see what it does. In the meantime, if anybody has any questions, please go ahead. We'll be able to kind of take it. So after this, it's basically deploying. I just need to call Pulumi up, and it just goes ahead and then creates it.
Hi everyone, if you have any questions, so you can unmute or can ask, or maybe you can put in the chat box. Hi Lohith, I have one question here.
Yes, please.
Suppose if we have already resources in Azure like ARM templates and Terraform.
Yeah.
And so how we can migrate those resources to the Pulumi?
Great question. Yeah, great question. So Pulumi also has, I think, a tool available. What it does is it can look at your resources and then try to bring that into Pulumi's structure, meaning, trying to get the Pulumi's code, whichever language you have or whatever. I've not personally used it because I've never done that scenario yet. Probably we'll need to explore it and then take a look at how it works. So now notice here in my pipeline, it probably will tell me resource group create. Yeah, so ST this create everything. It is figuring out like, it has to create it. So probably it has gone mismatch between the state that is. Oh yeah, when I created the from my machine, local machine, the state is written to my local machine. Whereas in the Azure DevOps, the state is getting written to the blob storage in the state that you remember we created to do API. This is the storage account, and I have a container here called dev. If I get in there, this is what they do. They store your metadata here. There it is, dev.json. That is as simple as it is. It's basically a JSON, that's it. You can download and then you can take a look at what they write. But don't play around with this, because if you mess up this JSON, well, then your Pulumi is going to go haywire and like, okay, sorry, I don't know what I need to do. Okay, so your question about can I bring in? I believe Pulumi migrate ARM to migrate ARM. I think something like that is there. Let me see. I remember reading something from there. Oh, not migrate. Oops, migrate. Yeah, there is something as far as I know, but I don't know how far it can go.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, convert your. They have ARM to Pulumi. So if you search for ARM to Pulumi, upgrade your Azure ARM templates to modern language.
Oh, okay.
Question. Hi, Lohith. Okay. If we are creating all the Azure resources through C# code, why do we need PowerShell script? Okay. I think I did not make myself clear. Let me try to maybe draw this out. Okay, let me just try to bring in a thing here. Let's go to home, new, probably blank. Okay, so what is happening is you need the state background, like, let me get this guy. Yeah, so you need a Pulumi state, right? Or the Pulumi backend, remember? You need a Pulumi backend, and then you have your infrastructure, correct? This is, let's say, to do API infrastructure, right? And this one is to do API state, backend state, or Pulumi state, right? So what we do is inside this particular state is nothing but we create the way we create a state or the state backend is by creating a resource group. And inside that resource group, we create a storage account. And inside the storage account, we create a container. This combination cannot be created using Pulumi. That's what I said, chicken and egg problem. You cannot use Pulumi to create Pulumi's backend infrastructure. Pulumi has to maintain its state, and the state can be maintained in a blob container. And that's what I just showed you, like the dev.json that was stored. It needs a blob container. You don't want to keep the state within your own Azure. You can always use Pulumi's cloud. That means now the state is maintained outside of your subscription. That means the state is there somewhere else, right? So that is why we use PowerShell to create this Pulumi's infrastructure for the state backend. And then the regular infrastructure, which is function app, resource group, to do API resource group, to do API function app, to do API app service plan. Yeah, this is my application infrastructure. And this application infrastructure, it's completely Pulumi. It's C#, right? So that's the difference between why we did a, the PowerShell, and then where the Pulumi comes in. So that was one question. Second one, is Pulumi an open source tool or a paid software? Any recommended docs to read more? If yes, kindly share. Oh, by the way, Pulumi is open source. So the best place that I've been hanging around is pulumi.com, and then the docs. I have to say that the docs are not that intuitive. If you have read Microsoft Docs, it feels a little like, oh yeah, I need to go here, there, everywhere. But yeah, so they're still evolving. But Pulumi as a product is open source. You don't pay for anything. But if you use their cloud, there is a pricing for that. Let's see, Pulumi Cloud. Let's see pricing. Basically, what happens is, remember the block that I wrote where we are creating our own state backend for Pulumi in our own Azure subscription? Well, if you use Pulumi's cloud, you don't have to do that. They already have created a SaaS product, and you just go in and then use it. Like if you see here, I have my own account. It's one member only. Any cloud, unlimited deployments, CI/CD integration, but only one guy can log in. That's me. Your team cannot log in. So if I have to showcase how the Pulumi cloud looks like, I don't know if it has my account. Yeah, I will need to log in. So let's say we log in. Yeah, this is the Pulumi cloud. And notice here, the backend, as I talked about, that we created using blob container. Well, they give you the backend if you create a project. That's it. Then you just need to tell Pulumi in your pipeline that, hey, look, your backend is here in Pulumi cloud. So you need an access token. You just provide the access token. Pulumi will store the state in Pulumi cloud when you run the pipeline in your Azure DevOps or GitHub Actions or wherever it is. So this is what it is. This is a stack. As of now, I have not done anything. this is basically I was just trying to play around to see what is happening. It will tell you all the resources that you have. You can set up all the integration, blah blah blah, whatever you think. So you don't want to create your own state backend. You can use Pulumi's cloud to store the backend data. That is the metadata of Pulumi. Up to you, whichever way you want to go. But the point that I wanted to showcase today is, look, in a DevOps world, I've already created my infrastructure now. So that means if I go to my RG to do API dev, well, yeah, I mean, I need to run the other after correcting all the things. But if it runs, you have your infrastructure ready from day one, right? So that's the main key point here. Then your testing team can come in, you can create a testing environment and then just keep deploying. Your deployment keeps running as a well-oiled machine. You don't need to wait for anything. Okay, any other questions? So I think Asif posted the open source and the tool. Yeah, so it's open source. The pricing is only for if you want to use their cloud. Otherwise, it's free. If that is what it is, open source SDK, any cloud, any language, open source, CLI runtime libraries, it's free. Okay, and this plan, what you see, is only for when you want to use Pulumi Cloud. Meaning I want to maintain the metadata, the state of my Pulumi in the cloud, Pulumi's cloud. I will be putting all the code back to this particular folder. So keep a eye out for this folder. Part 2 will contain everything that I've done now. And then I'll merge it to the main branch. And then part 3 will be actually writing the the actual APIs. Any more questions? So I still have time, but it's already we're already at the mark of 1.5 hours. Thanks to everybody who's still there. If any more questions are there, please go ahead. I'm here.
Yeah, I think no more questions.
That's it. Okay, it's dinner time then.
Yeah, thanks, Lohit. Thanks, really nice session. Another great session. So, hi everyone. If you have any questions, so you can ask either you can post in our MVP group channel or on Meetup channel or either Facebook. Okay, and we'll try to arrange a third part of the series in next 2 weeks.
Yep.
So based on Lohit availability, yeah, and yeah, thanks for today's joining the session. Good night, everyone. Thanks.
Yeah. Have a great evening. Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
Lohit. Thanks again.
Bye. Thanks, Asif. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Roderick.